Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Jay Shannon Literacy. Thank you for tuning in today. If you are new here, I am Jay Shannon, and here we are going to talk about all things literacy. Today I am going to do a book review over The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. I just finished this book. I really loved it for a variety of reasons. And so without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm just gonna, let's see here. Let's prop this for you. Prop this greatness on top of other greatness so you can just see it. So when I do a book review, I'm looking at this from three different lenses. I'm looking at it from the lens of a Black woman. I'm looking at it from the lens of a Black educator. And I'm looking at it from a lens of representation. And so those might sound similar, but let me give you the difference. As a Black woman, I'm thinking about what was my reading experience when I was a child. I read lots of books. I read The Boxcar Kids and Sweet Valley High and The Babysitter's Club, but I didn't see people that looked like me. Consequently, I was always wanting to look like the people in the book. I wanted my hair to be a certain way, not understanding that lack of representation is really what was causing that. I can't even remember books that I read in school that actually had main characters that look like me. So that in and of itself is unacceptable. As a Black mother, I think about what I want for my kids, what I want them to see when they are reading. And as a Black educator, so I think I gave you an extra one. As a Black educator, I'm thinking about what do I want students to experience when they read. Reading is a very intimate situation. And so it's extremely important that we create spaces for kids to really see themselves, understand other people, humanize other people in ways that maybe the media does not, et cetera, et cetera. And then when I am looking at it from a lens of representation, it is because I want other people to see that everybody has family and everybody can be happy and everything is not rooted in oppression as it relates to Black people. And yes, there are things that all Black people deal with, but it is not necessary for the only literature that we read to be literature about slavery, oppression, or some crazy misfortune that paints this picture like we just have very dark lives and are so abnormal in every space that our happiness is limited by our circumstances. Ugh, it's too much. So anyway, let's go to The Black Kids because this was the best. Okay, so the book is set in Los Angeles, 1992. If you don't know anything about that, we're talking about Rodney King, we're talking about riots, we're talking about fires. It's a big deal. And the setting is just so powerful. So that's one thing to really unpack and to understand what is going on. But our main character, Ashley, she's Black, she's in an affluent family. They have money, and they live around all white people who have money. And she goes to this predominantly white school, and there are the Black kids that are there, but she doesn't hang with the Black kids. She hangs with her friends that she's grown up with who all happen to be white. Now, the interesting thing about this is that Rodney King is happening in the background. And so that creates a completely different set of situations for these high school kids that are seniors and about to graduate. And Ashley struggles with where she should be. She hangs out with her friends and they love her and she loves them, but the relationship is interesting because she deals with microaggressions, snide comments that she shouldn't have to put up with. There's a little bit of bullying that happens, but she's the only Black person, not just the only Black girl. She's the only Black person in this group. And so one, it's important for kids, people, everyone to understand what that's like for Black kids when they are moving through spaces where they are by themselves. And so, yes, there are a group of Black kids at the school, but those are not kids that she hangs out with. So that's one thing that's covered in the text that I thought was really important. Another thing is it gives a look into the trauma that Black people face as it relates to police brutality. And it doesn't matter if Black people are rich or poor or somewhere in between. That brutality is as traumatic, and we share that experience regardless of whether we know each other or we are in the same spaces. And so this book does a good job of showing how different Black kids are experiencing this and how the white kids are not nearly as affected by it. So I thought that was important. It shows how code switching can sometimes just not be possible. And so Black people are often required to code switch. When I move into this space, I have to carry myself a certain way. I've been told that I can come off as aggressive and you don't want me to offend anyone. The book does a great job of showing how code switching sometimes is just not possible. And the Black kids, when they're together, they can be themselves, and Ashley finds that out. But when they are in these other spaces, sometimes having to code switch is just, it's really hard. And so we are able to get a look into the lives of 17-year-olds, I would say current day 17-year-olds, and things that they go through, and see how they deal with unrest and injustice. And even though it's set in 92, and which is really great about that is you get the fashion, you get the music, you get the happenings of 1992 happening in the backdrop. So if I were to teach this, I would make sure that I front load. My background information would be about, who is Rodney King, what happened, LA riots, LA fires, those kinds of things are important to note. Like what happened to the community as a result. All of those things are necessary. What kind of music were people listening to in the 90s? What kind of fashion were they wearing? Because all of that will help with the visualization of the book, and it's going to help students better understand what it is that they're reading. So overall, I really, really, really loved it. I'm looking at it from a different lens. I don't know that I could teach it in class. I mean, yes, they are 17-year-olds and they have a lot of freedom and they are going to go off to college. And so they are having sex and they are taking drugs, and those things are frowned upon by school districts, yet it seems to be completely and totally appropriate for kids to read books with the N-word 50,000 times and people being hanged and set on fire, but that's a different conversation for a different day. At any rate, I recommend The Black Kids. I thought that Hammonds did a fantastic job of creating a story that had so many layers, and her characters had depth, and Ashley as the main character is so important because she's the baby in her family, and so she's dealing with that role, and she is the only Black girl in her friendship group, and she's dealing with that role, and there's a group of Black kids that are more than happy to welcome her, and she's dealing with that role. And so all of those things are important, and they're happening while she is a senior, while she is preparing to go to college, and her processing of these things and her trying to find herself is just really, really important. So I recommend this book as a book that would be really good for anybody that wants to understand the Black experience as it relates to having to move through so many different circles, and also understanding that it gives a different picture of Black people as a whole. We are not all always poor or always impoverished or always dealing with slavery or mistreatment in the most blatant ways. And it's important that we create spaces for students to read things that show Black people in different lights, so that we can destroy those stereotypes that have been created by what do we call those? Classics. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you go out and get a copy of The Black Kids. Definitely read it first before you figure out who you're going to read it with as it relates to young people. I think if it's in libraries, they're going to check it out. They're going to read it. I just don't know that you can do it as a class set. Just kind of depends. But it is worth the read. It's definitely worth the conversation. There are things that happen in there that need to be discussed. That it will even help grown-ups who maybe have just been oblivious to things. The setting is 1992, but oh God, like this is not anything different than what we've been experiencing. So without anything else, that's all I have. It's called The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. It's a great read. It took me a minute to get through it, but that's because I have so much going on. I think you could probably do like 3.5, 4 hours would knock it out. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, have a good one. Bye.